beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of WTF What's the Frequency, the show where we explore how vibrational frequencies can affect the way you feel, your physicality, and the way that you create your life. And today I've got a very exciting guest, Iheanyi, aka Blackliquid, who has spent 35 years as a music professional, as a DJ, a producer, and a composer. And he's here with us today to talk about the frequency of music and, as he's a voiceover artist now, the frequency of your voice and how it can affect your environment. So join me in welcoming Iheanyi, aka Blackliquid, to WTF What's the Frequency?
Hello. Hey, how are you guys doing? How are you doing, love?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for joining us today. I've been really excited about this conversation because I know that, in the past we've spoken about frequency and the effect of, frequency on our lives, the way it makes us feel, all that sort of thing. And music is one of my passions, and obviously it's one of yours. So I'd like to dive straight in and say to you, before I ask you about your journey, what does vibrational frequency mean to you?
Yeah, really good question. I suppose for me, vibrational frequency means I say like color, vision, sound, and in all of its glory, and in all of its, because I say glory from the melodious side of music, right? I say glory there, but because we've had the introduction of things like dubstep, for example, and even if somebody who's only into opera or classical music listens to that and would say it sounds like a bunch of noise, I may not be able to accept it because I'm a rhythmic-based individual. And I like that variation in sound. And I like to, if you can take something that shouldn't work, but you make it work, I'm all up for it. And dubstep to me at the time when it popped out was just like that. So that's why I say both sides of it.
I like that because it is, sound, colour, light, they're all frequencies and they're all things that are mixed in with music, aren't they? Either in the creation, the layering, or in the music video to give you the effects, the emotion of what the music means.
Yeah.
So tell us about your journey into music. How did you become, really a superstar DJ?
Yeah, that was so at the age of 17, my friends and I were trying to get into a nightclub in the West End, right, on New Year's Eve. We were trying to get one of these flash clubs, and look, we were young. We knew, when I look at a 16-year-old who's trying to do that now, I see in a movie, I say, that's what we looked like back then. So yeah, it wasn't impressive, right? And they was like, no, you need girls to get in. Anyway, we decided, no, we're not going to do that. So, because we couldn't, we tried, but we failed. So we got in a cab and drove from London all the way. We go from West End all the way over to South London to a club called Kisses in Peckham. I don't know if you remember that club.
I remember that club in Peckham.
Fantastic club. Amazing memories at that club. Anyway, brilliant club. So we go there New Year's Eve, and it was like, what, five quid to get in, and we're in. The music, we already love the music. We know what's going on. We're in, and we're on the dance hall, and I keep on hearing things like, oh, live and direct, Grandmaster Flash on the Wheels of Steel, right? And I thought, oh, that was some DJ just saying something, or the MC just saying something. Anyway, we're still dancing. Some dude walks past, and I said to my friend, that dude's not from London. Didn't know who it was, but long hair, dark-skinned dude, long hair. And I'm like, no, that it's not from London. They don't look like that. It's like, what's going on here? So we're carrying on. Anyway, later on, I'm sitting talking to this girl, trying to chat her up, right? I'm sitting by with the DJ booth is on my back. So it's a little cushion. I'm sitting there and talking to this girl. And I hear Grandmaster Flash on the Wheels of Steel. And I'm like, so I looked over at the stage and I'm like, wait, so I go to the girl, excuse me, love, 1 minute. I turn around like this. He's right there behind me on the decks. And Gordon Mack from Kiss is standing next to him.
Oh my goodness, I know Gordon Mack. He just played at my friend's birthday party last week.
Awesome dude, man. Awesome dude. One of the greats from back in the day. Love that geezer. Love that geezer. And has he still got his locks?
Yeah, but he's sort of balding on top now.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so I ignored the girl in mid-flow. I just ignored her. I turned around. I put my knees on the thing. I cushioned on doing this. I was so close. I could put my hands like that and touch his records. And I watched him intently. Right. I was watching him. I was watching what he was doing on the turntables. I was looking back at the crowd when I looked back.
What an honour, though. This is like Grandmaster Flash. This is the guy whose music crossed over and brought hip hop really to the UK, didn't it? I mean, it was, you know, that was it. Everybody knows the words to all Grandmaster Flash tracks.
Exactly. And that dude, and I'm watching him. I can touch him. I'm that close. I can touch his records. I'm that close, and I'm watching everything. And you know what was the most impressive thing? It wasn't how we took I Found Love in the 2 copies and then smashed them to pieces and ripped the roof off left and right at will. It wasn't just that. For me, and this was the technical side of things, and I was already a drummer, and I could already sing, and I could already do the same, and I was already in a band. Whilst he was doing all of that, he was talking to Gordon Mack. And I could see them having an actual conversation. Not, wait, let me finish this. No. He was smashing up the crowd and they're having an actual conversation. And I watched that bit. And that was the bit that impressed me. It wasn't so much the turntables. He's a genius. He was the first. But that bit, him having a conversation. I said, so I got in the cab. When we were going home, I was in the cab and I was silent. My friends were, what's wrong? And I just said, I know what I want to do. I want to be a DJ. And I just said it just like that in the cab. And it might sound cliche, but that actually happened. I was silent for the rest of the journey. And then my plan was, how do I get Technics 1200s in my house? And I'm a kid who has no money, right?
I know. I think that was the problem for everybody in South London, wasn't it? We all wanted the Technics kit.
And
none
I knew
of us
I had
had
to.
got any. Nobody had got any cash. So, and we didn't have car beats then, did we? So you couldn't nip down there and pick up an odd bit of gear or anything like that, or eBay.
No.
So I mean, it was just expensive stuff. But I like what you said about the fact that he was amazing on the decks, was having a conversation at the same time. I mean, that's somebody who was in total flow, who's in total flow with the music.
Now that's the frequency you want to be at when you're producing, when you're putting your stuff out, because he was on such a wavelength that not only could you tell that he had mastered his craft, right, as a DJ and as the first person really to bring it like that, but the level he was on was like no one could catch him. It doesn't matter. Even as good as I am right now, I could still never catch it. I can do all of that. I can leave the turntables and stuff is still mixing on vinyl and no one's there. I can do all of that. I'm brave enough and I'm happy enough to do all of that. But I could never catch him. Because
there's a reason, isn't there? There's a he was an exemplar of his art. He brought it to the UK and he slapped us around the face with it and we embraced it. We never heard or seen anything like it. I mean, I just remember being so excited by this new music. And I remember it coming into the clubs, you know, and everybody just knew the words overnight. And it was on Kiss FM. And it was, well, nobody listened. If you were into dance music, you didn't listen to anything but Kiss FM, did you? Pirate station, constantly retuning.
That's it. Yep. That was it. That was all you listened to.
Wow. And that had its own frequency as well, being pirate stations. Were you involved with that? Because they had a freedom, didn't they? A rebellion that other stations didn't have.
Right. So I never. It was only much later did I get to play at Pirates before I then moved over to the UK. I'm into the US, but pirate stations back then were a big part of us. I remember my girlfriend and I back then, the pages, having the word pages, being able to be the people that people come and get tickets through, or being able to be the people that get the information for particular raves, that kind of stuff. So the pirate stations are always an area where you got all your messages, where you heard all the tunes that you weren't hearing on anything else. Nowhere. You couldn't hear them anywhere. So you didn't know they existed unless you were listening to pirate. the parties you didn't know existed unless you were listening to Pirate or somebody you knew, right? So this was a completely closed off to the real world situation. This was our burgeoning, well protected, sometimes really quite unbelievable scenario bubbling up, generating, just new. And Pirates were huge for that. And the vibe, just the having them in the background as you're doing your daily chore was different to having Radio One, or it was just, yeah, it was the
To
whole
me,
frequency change.
it had real life. And I used to go over to the States a lot and buy a lot of records over there, and then sort of, bring them back 12-inch singles. Do you remember?
Right.
And you'd actually hear them on pirate radio, or you would have heard them, so you could order them in from the States or pick them up when you were there.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about rave for a moment, because after hip hop, and we're in 50 years of hip hop now, can you believe it? Amazing.
Amazing. Yep.
But rave was such a big thing, wasn't it? And I feel it was because at the time the economy was not dissimilar to how it is now. We had Black Monday, we had all sorts of horrible things going on, and there wasn't an awful lot to look forward to. And it felt to me like it answered the search that everybody had. They just wanted more. They wanted a connection. They wanted a cheap way of going out and enjoying themselves that was safe.
Indeed.
So how did rave sort of hit you?
Well, you touched upon so many points. For example, being in a position to where you go out on a Friday night, and just because I look like this, don't mean to say that I can dance, man, because I can't play drums. But listen, I wasn't no stylish dancer. Just so we can clear that up right now, everybody. Yeah, that's not how it is. So, so people would sometimes laugh at me in the night in the discos, right? But when I went rave, I didn't have to worry about what I wore. I'd have to go and find. I used to wear woolen jumpers, jeans, my woolly hats, right, and my trainers, and I'd go to rave, and no one give you a second look. And I could just jump up and down on the spot or do whatever I wanted. No one give you a second look, and you could be into the music completely. And there is something to be said for being in a nightclub and hearing, say, like some, I don't know, Earth, Wind and Fire, or whoever it is, whichever, loose ends or something, and really being in that moment, really being in that vibe. But rave was, it put you completely in there, to the point where the first time I ever went to anything, my friend, my neighborhood, he turned around to me and said, "Oh, look, it's Tuesday night, come to this club." I looked at him like, "Are you mad? Tuesday?" I said, look. I said, "What's it? What was it? The studio used to be on a Monday, right, in Streatham. It's about as far as I'd take it. Tuesday? What are you talking about?" It was this little club in Purley that we went to. And it was the first time I heard acid house music. It was the first time I was in a nightclub that I recognized, but I didn't recognize it anymore because they had the smoke screen, that the smoke machine was just on. The fog machine wasn't just, and then it was on to the point where this is different. I'm not even going to move from here because I know I'm going to trip over something. The light is doing this, so I'm just going to stay right here for a second and wait.
It was like that, wasn't it? And it was like mental rave, mental lights, and illuminous painted sculptures, and
it was just so, your eyes and your ears were bombarded with what normally most people would fear. If you have people would fear an epileptic shock from, but it wasn't like that, because the music, the strawberry scent to the fog, the just the simplicity of it all, but the depth of the sound being rumbled like that on you that had never happened before, it changed everything. It changed our water completely. We'd never experienced it.
I agree. And those huge stack speakers. I went to a retro bar with my daughter in London the other day, and they had them as a sort of sculptural piece, and they were playing music through them. And I was like, "Oh my God, I've just gone back in time. This is amazing. I love it."
Brilliant.
Huge. I mean, I don't think people realize how big they were. They were sort of the size of a van, weren't they?
Well, remember Ladbroke Grove. Remember Notting Hill Carnival. I remember seeing some of the sound systems that would turn up for that. And you're walking past, you suddenly hear a tune come off, and it'll be like some really dope house. No, not house. I mean, soulful, soul music kind of. And when the be like, you're like, wait. And when you look round, the DJs are up there, and all of the stacks start from the pavement, and it's just up like that. And they've got scaffolding helping them to get to the top of it. That stuff was incredible. The sound, incredible.
It was,
Mind
and
blowing.
I don't think we have that sound now, because as you say, it used to invade your body, didn't it? It used to sort of make you vibrate.
Yeah.
And because it was so positive,
Right.
and because everyone was so happy, you know, nobody went to a rave for a fight. I can't think that I ever saw a fight, or anyone pulled a gun or a knife, or there was anything horrible said. You know, people bump into, oh, so sorry.
No, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
lovely
that was it.
jumper.
I mean, you cut across boundaries in a certain way where you felt inhibited in just the way in which you would communicate with somebody, shaking hands and stuff. I remember there'll be like groups of us like just jumped up in the air at one point at the top of the tune. You know what I mean? You blokes, it don't matter. You're holding hands. You're like, yes, mate, come on. You know, it's like a goal had been scored, or you know, it was this camaraderie. It was this connection. You know, what's his name? Tall Paul.
Oh gosh, I know Paul. Used to know Tall Paul.
Right?
I can't believe we're keep having these conversations where you mention people. I'm like, oh my goodness, I know them from back in the day.
Right. And before then, they were soccer hooligans. They used to be. They were right. So look at that. From that to rave comes in, and now it's all about love, and that changed everybody. That changed everything's calmed down. There's actually a movie called Rise of the. Is it Rise of the Foot Soldiers? I think it's Rise.
Yeah,
it
is Rise of the Foot Soldiers. I think it is. Yeah,
and it demonstrates that part where they wanted to take over bars, and it's like, this is the easiest money we've made. Nobody's having a fight. There you go.
Exactly. And I mean, you know, let's just talk about that for a moment, because, you know, we both come from South London,
Right,
and South London is where all the gangster films are shot, all the gangster stories are from. You know, I don't want anybody to be thinking out there that it's a love and peace type situation in South. It was pretty rough, wasn't it, before rave came in, and then all of a sudden everybody just calmed down and everything was music. And I don't think people realize how far that spread, because I can remember the Soul to Soul album coming out, Jazzy B Mix. What a stonker.
Goosebumps.
And I remember driving down the Edgware Road, and I was going one way and this guy was coming the other, and we were stuck in traffic, and we were both listening to the same Soul to Soul track at the same time. And we just looked at each other and started singing together in the middle of London traffic. You know, it's like that never used to happen. Road rage was predominant, wasn't it? And all of a sudden everyone was chilled.
Okay, so for those, so just this will be one for the viewers, because they'll never have seen this. I remember my friend and I had finished. We were supposed to go to we were told that we had a radio interview, but we went there. The building was closed for whatever reason. Back in the day, things were very sketchy, and that's fine. And we were in Whitehall, and we sat in the driveway of this establishment. And we were sitting there. And we're in the car. We're like, what do we do now? I don't know, man. We should go somewhere. So we're sitting and we're watching traffic drive past. Traffic is driving past. All of a sudden, these two Mini Coopers, a red one and a yellow one, drive past. The red one, I saw the driver. The driver was wearing a shiny bomber jacket, red baseball cap. The yellow one, same thing. Follow them. So we just followed. So we just started driving. We were in London. We're following them. We followed them out of London, right? We followed them down some A road. Then we lost them. Now it's just me and my friend driving down some A road. Where are we going? Just keep going this way. We just, us, men, they don't want to stop and look. No, just keep going this way. We'll be all right. So we keep driving. We're on this A road, and then we come onto the motorway. All of a sudden, and this is nighttime, we just see a sea of red lights. But it's not stopped, it's moving. We're like, and me and my friend look at each other, what's this? And it's just, so we just follow that. So we follow it now. And there's people leaning out of cars, handing out flyers and stuff like that. And I'm like, people like the sunroof. And I'm like, what's going on? We go through this village, and I literally saw the police car that was blocking off the little tributary road for the village to this through road. Same thing on that side. And then when I looked in the mirror, I noticed some geezer, there were like 4 or 5 cars using the pavement as well. And the cops just let us roll through. And we're rolling through. So we're like, where are we going? We ended up driving onto some RAF base, right? You see the arch, the half arch little thing. We're like, aircraft hangar. So we then pull off and go into the field to park. We see these trucks pulling into the aircraft hangar, and then the cabs coming out and leaving the back ends in. So then we're in queue now. We're in line, transfers, we're in line. People are giving tickets. He's got bin liners, and people just throwing the tickets in the bin liners as they come, and then people are going in. Scaffolding to the roof. What's his name? Jumping Jack Frost happened to be on when I first stepped in. Just nuts. What I was looking at, I'm looking at semis with speakers, with nuts. Never. I'm like, what's this? And this is us saying, oh, let's follow these people. It ended up being a sunrise. It was was it Energy or Sunrise? It was Sunrise. The party was Sunrise. I used to have his number, Davenport's number. The party was Sunrise. It was on an RAF base in Ipswich.
I know exactly where that is. Because I live in Suffolk now, and there is we've got a few air bases, and now and again we do still have raves. So just to be clear to our viewers, particularly those in America, because rave never really took off in America.
No, it didn't.
Rave was the coming together of everybody that loved dance music to obscure locations like old RAF hangars and army bases, forests, the moors in Yorkshire, and where people would literally just turn up and set up a set of DJ decks, a load of speakers, and people would pay a minimal amount, not big club money, to get in. And it would be an all-night dancing affair. And there would be a bar, but most people would be drinking water because everybody was there to dance.
And it was just, when you've been in a situation where alcohol does not enter, like Rave at the Cave, those types of things, there was never any alcohol there. They only sold sodas if you needed that. They made free sarsaparilla, so you could just have that for free. Waters were available. That was it. But you were there 9 hours dancing. Yeah. Talk about detox. It doesn't matter what you took. You detoxed it out that night.
Well, absolutely. And people used to say, how come you're so fit? And I used to think, well, I've just danced for 9 hours on 3-inch heels. That's why my legs are toned up, honey. And, my toes were a bit sore. I can't do it now. I'm strictly trainers for everything. But back in the day, we wore the gear, didn't we? We wore shorts and high heels, and we had our whistles, and,
we were ready. We were ready.
It was a real look. It wasn't, and we weren't dressed to impress. We were dressed to dance, weren't we?
Thank you. Dressed to dance and be comfortable in your moment. That's literally what it was about. And I must honestly say that for me, music, when we talk about vibrations of music is definitely a life-changing moment for me. The vibration of music, understanding it, being part of it, allowed me to actually have a voice. And when rave came along, it showed me many people who also found their voices too. And it showed me that you can do things based on love. Right. One of my friends is Roger Goodman. Roger Goodman, if nobody knows, in the UK was he did the first ever rave. Like Apocalypse Now, it's the first rave. That's Roger Goodman. Roger Goodman used to pay the wages of so many doormen that I realized afterwards, I was like, who's this little genius? What's going on here, man? And to be in a place where you literally, the outside world didn't matter at that moment because you never brought it in.
No, and that was the thing. It was a total escape, wasn't it? Because as I said, when we started talking about this, the economy was terrible. Nobody had a job. We were at war. There were all sorts of terrible things happening. And rave was our savior, wasn't it? To our age group, it was like our option for going out cheaply on a Friday and Saturday night, but it was all about love, and it was a total escape. And it didn't mean that we were all sleeping with everybody. We were too busy dancing,
no
you know,
doubt.
but there was a real happy vibe. So let's just hold that thought for a minute, because we're just going to take a break from our lovely sponsors, My Life Spring. And everybody, please stay with us for this really amazing conversation with Iheanyi, aka Blackliquid. We'll be back in a minute.
Ignite your vitality. Meet the LifeSpring Gold Card, a quantum leap in wellness. Revitalize your bioenergy, boost stamina, ease aches, and improve your mental focus. Shield yourself from electromagnetic frequencies emitted from cell phones, laptops, and other smart technologies. Restructure tap water, revitalize food, and harmonize everything around you. Elevate well-being with LifeSpring, made in the USA. Order today from VanessaElston.com.
And welcome back. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm here with Iheanyi, aka Blackliquid, and we're having a fantastic conversation about music, the vibration of music, and the effect it has on humanity and your physicality, really.
Yeah.
So we were just finishing up talking about the rave culture and how rave came in and introduced us all to dance music and got us on the same vibration when we were all in these places together, and how it was really happy, full of love and full of joy. So of that time, you know, what did that give you that gave you a springboard, if you will, to what you're doing now? Because it was such a shift, wasn't it, in musical culture in the UK?
Yes. So really the advent of being able to, it was like being able to take digital, electronic, synthetic music, and depending on how you applied yourself, put your soul in. Because at the end of the day, the guys that were doing this, the guys and girls that were doing this at the beginning, were originally musicians in some way, shape, or form. They were in bands, you know, drummers, guitarists, bass players. Remember, these were the people that were always in studios. And when we heard about some certain technology, certain, you know, synthesizers, computer programs, like I used the early, everybody might know Logic. I used the early C Lab, stuff like that. You know, it was a chance for a different form of expression. And it was a chance for a legitimate form of expression. And we'd had a few cursory early pointers in the form of people like Kraftwerk, in the form of people like Man Parrish, Africa Bambaataa, in the form of Laurie Anderson, Art of Noise. So when you've got that as a basis, we're already used to digital electronic beats. We've had a taste, you know. The Beastie Boys were an interesting mix of hip hop and that as well. So we've had a taste. So then it was the perfect timing for simplistic beats, you know, to come through. I remember Moby, his track Go. That was one massive. But if I think earlier than Go, was it? No, let me just get this right. Was it earlier or later? Okay, so there's Go by Moby, seminal track in the UK for the club moment. French Kiss, Little Louis, right? Another moment where it was like, and I heard that club, I watched that tune tear up a Kingston nightclub after those clubs had now emptied to the raves. And then they were like, we need to actually have DJs who are playing that rave music, otherwise we're done for. And then people started wandering back in. And so then the everyday person started to get introduced to rave music. And then that's where the market opened, like in Europe and the UK, for some of that to make it into the charts and so forth.
Yeah, it really was a gateway, wasn't it? And
yeah.
I love what you said about the mashup. I was talking to Tony with the keys the other day, Tony Washington.
Nice.
I love him. We were talking about hip hop, our love of hip hop. And we were talking about how the mashup happened, where all of a sudden you've got Indian call for prayer being mixed into a dance track, where you've got sort of Spanish merengue music
Uh-huh.
being mixed in, just dropped in for a
Right.
couple of I want
Right.
to say tags. I'm sure
Right.
there's a better expression for it.
Right. Right.
But this whole mashup was just so incredible because up until that point, and you mentioned it earlier, it's very segregated, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was a very close shop. I can remember being very unusual. They're going to Blue Note Records in Brixton. I think I was the only white girl that went in there and said, "Oh, have you got this?" And they'd be like,
What?
"How do you know about that?"
Exactly.
And I'd say, "Well, I've just been listening to it in New York. I've just been over there, and they were playing it at a fashion show or something, and I love it." And they, so I was always, they always used to sort of laugh at me, and they'd sort of go, "Oh, here comes the white girl DJ." And I never was a DJ. I always wanted to be a DJ, but I was never brave enough, to be honest with you. I should have just gone for it.
Yeah, because you had the music selection, and that's the key. The technicals you can teach, but if you don't know how to select the right music, whoo.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that again for a moment, because you're a producer and a composer, and music's all about layers, isn't it? Layers of frequency to tell a story. Tell me how you put them all together. How does it come to you? Does it come from above? Do you wake up with it in the morning? What happens?
Right. Yeah. So in my 20s, I used to just like stuff would just pour into my head, and I would have to literally be singing it all day long or chirping it all day long or whatever it was to keep it so that when I got to a studio, I could put it down. What else? I suppose at the end of the day, then there was the fact that when I would back in the day before I had my own studios, I would rent. So, and I would walk in I would walk in just knowing that I needed to make a tune. I wouldn't have a tune lined up or anything, not at first. So I'd go in and I'd make the tune that day, right? And you'd learn on the fly, and you're doing all these different scenarios on the fly. But as you're doing it, I would tap into what I needed to when I got into the studio. I'd smoke a joint or two, and I would really tap in. The engineers that I worked with, John Says, and who was it? Oh, Lee Burridge, not Lee Burridge, no, Lee Berrick, and then the guys from DigiDub. I used to work with them as engineers in the specific studios that I would work for, and they would allow me to tap in to that vibe I needed to get to. They would give me that space, and then I would be like, okay, well, I need to do this. So, and as time went by, I understood from being in a band, you got drums, you got bass, you got guitar, you got the vocals. And I understood from orchestras being around that type of energy as well, that they had different positions on the stage. So I understood that things were three-dimensional. And then when I was making so if I'm DJing, if anybody has heard me DJ, they know that I don't just do a little quick transition. I'm not into that. For me, it's like tune, and then the next tune's coming.
Oh, absolutely. Do you know
Right?
what? I hate it when DJs just bang it in. It's like you haven't let us in. You haven't let that one.
No introduction.
You haven't let the other one come up. It's an art form, and they're always laughing at me because, we'll go. I mean, at my age now, occasionally we'll go to a nightclub, and my friends are like, "V, go and sort the DJ out. Go and give him a talking to, will you, and tell him what to play, because this is terribly just smashing and grabbing it."
Exactly, not good. There's a finesse. You got a finesse. I said at the end of literally, I started my first professional thing. So I think when I saw him just before I was 17, and then I worked 6 months solidly, got the gear. 17 and a bit was my first actual paid gig in London. Where was it? It was in Maximus, right? So there you go. So 17, I'm 57 now. It's 40 years, and right there behind me are my 3 Pioneer decks and my decks, right? So when I mix, I have to come in. It has to be this long ass layering scenario. I like to put things together. So people would come up to me and say, "Mate, I've not heard that version. Where'd you get that version from?" I say, "It's happening right now, mate." Like the amount of times people would come up to me, "Wait, where'd you get that version?" Because I'm a musician. I'm a composer. So if I'm DJing, I'll make sure the B line, I'll know the intros, I'll know the little drops, I'll make sure they start. So when that person's just about to sing, this bass line's coming in. People are like, "Dude, what's that? That's dope."
I love that. I love that, because that's how you keep everybody up,
Yep.
isn't it? I
Yes,
mean,
it
but you
is.
give them enough breather to just come down, gust the breath, and then it's like, oh my God, tune, I love this. And everybody is off again. And I love the thing that you said earlier about not being able to dance. The thing about the British rave scene is you don't have to dance, do you? You just have to like bounce about and just like look
Go to it.
happy.
No
And
matter,
that's it.
exactly. That was the beauty of it, man. And this is going to be a humbling moment for all DJs, right? You know what? One of the very first jobs one of the first few gigs I got was also at it used to be called Busby's back in the day. It was in Tottenham Court Road, just before Shaftesbury Avenue. Like I think they turned it into a club called LA2. I don't know what it's called now, but
it used to be called I know it was. It was called the Dirt Box at one time, and it was
I
called
missed those.
Philip Salon used to be on the door, didn't he? I can't. You know what'll happen? We'll get to the end of this, and we'll go. It was so and so. The Mud Club. The Mud Club.
There you go. That's it. There you go. Perfect. Well done. Thank you. And I remember the dude comes up to me. He comes up to me and he goes to me, look, I'm trying something out. I goes, what? He goes, look, I think it was even the Mud Club. He goes, look at that. I said, look. See on the bar, you'll see them dry roasted peanuts. He goes, yeah. He goes, so we'll this night, rather than have people come in and then take the dry roasted peanuts and just I want you to make them drink. So as a DJ, as a disc jockey going into the professional world, my first encounters, to keep that job, I was up against a bag of dry roasted peanuts that was scattered across the fucking, seriously. And people I'm like, listen, so when those DJs come in and they start making up noise, I'm like, listen, man, you don't even know what's going on, right? Because if you did, you'd be grateful for what you're doing. Some of us literally had to carve that way through. And because of us, that place now has DJs. Because before it didn't. It had a jukebox and peanuts, right?
Yeah.
And it's the most humbling thing in the world when you finish and you hope to go, and you had to go through by your third track, people needed to be on the dance floor. There was none of this just play and nothing's happening. No.
You had to drive it, or you were
You
out.
had to know how
shouting. Get a new DJ on. Make us dance. Give us something to dance to.
Thank you. And it was brutal. And you either had to. So you had to be good. You had to know how to start the car, put it in gear, and drive to your destination. Because there was no one else coming in. You didn't have a backup plan. There was none of that. It was you. And if by the third tune you didn't see people milling on the floor now, you look over. You don't even want to look over to where the manager's standing or where the owner's standing. You don't want to look over there. You just want to do this. But that didn't happen. Why?
Yeah.
Because I made sure I knew my music. I took it serious. Trust me.
Yeah. It's a very serious business. And there's a huge difference between a really good DJ and someone who's a real amateur. And it generally is the fact nobody's dancing and everybody wants to and everyone's getting a bit fed up. So we've talked about rave a lot because it was so prominent in both our sort of journey through youth, really. And it obviously led you on to becoming a DJ and then working with people like Hed Kandi and, getting involved with all, those top producers and record companies and all the rest of it. But now you do a lot of voiceover work, don't you?
Right. So I've been doing that bit by bit, because it kept on getting told, your voice is really exceptional. Your voice is really exceptional. You got a voice. Are you doing voiceovers? No, not yet. Are you doing voiceovers? Okay. So then it went from nothing to me having to. There was one week where I walked into the Africa channel in Burbank, right? I had to do 2 test runs. Just somebody heard me speaking in a store, walked up and gave me their business card.
Wow. Now let's just wind that back for a minute, because that is real serendipity knocking on your door. And that is when you're connected to the universe, when you're on the good foot, when you're only imagining good things are going to happen, those waves of serendipity are feeding out from you, then you can just be buying a coffee and somebody goes, hey, I love your voice. Here's my business card.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And so I followed that. And when you wake up in the morning, you're in your pajamas, you don't want anybody to see you. and you're in Trader Joe's and it's early and you're getting your creamer or whatever it is you're buying for your coffee or whatever it is, and as you say thank you to the lady, you don't even know the woman, middle-aged woman, literally stood there, and when I finished speaking she went, my God, I could wake up to that every morning.
Excuse me, I'm
Like,
terrified.
I'm
Came in for a coffee.
But so because of those particular cues I kept on getting from the universe, right, telling me, yeah, you got a voice, you got a voice, you got a voice. So I was like, okay. So I did a video. The first good one I did was this Russian World War II video game that a British friend of mine got, who you'll actually know of, my British friend. His name is Mark Bell, and he was one half of M People.
Oh my
Give us
goodness.
her face. Yeah. He owns Shaboom Records, right? That brilliant British pantheon of a label, you know, the mighty Shaboom. So he got me to do this. He got me to do this voiceover thing, and he's wanted 3 characters. So I looked at the script, and it was so I basically did something simple. I did a London lad, you know, one of the fighter pilots was from London. I did one from like Eton, and then there was just a middle of the road cat, right? So it was perfect. And one from Eton, and there was the bombardier, so that was a very sort of more gruff voice. I say, oh boy, you're not talking.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. So, and I sat there for 5 hours. I didn't even, he goes, how are you just going straight through? I'm just reading. And I just looked at each one, and I imagine the individual, I see the individual's face, I see the person, and then I go ahead and I try to be that person. You know, I used to do it.
There's such a cadence, isn't there, and an accent. I mean, the South London accent, that's sort of like, all right, geezer, how's it going? All right, darling, how are you?
Yeah, it's very up. Yeah,
you know,
it's very up.
It's really
bubbly. It's
really
bubbly.
quick.
Yeah,
it
is.
And for our American friends watching, yes, we really do speak like snatch in South London. You know, that's what you'll hear if you go there.
Yes,
and equally, you know, I love a good old Brummie accent, and we've got such a wealth of accents in our country, haven't we?
In such a short distance. You think about it. If you go to Land's End, from Land's End to John O'Groats, literally, it's by the time you get to John O'Groats, you probably won't even. Certain people they would have been lost in Liverpool. At Liverpool, we don't know what they're talking about. Can we leave now?
I used to be married to a Geordie, and when his brothers used to come back from the pub on a sort of Saturday night and be very like, why didn't go lately to rob it, you know? I just couldn't understand anything. And then eventually I mastered it, and I was able to translate films like Boys from the Black Stuff for friends of mine, you know, because it is like a foreign language, some of our British accents, aren't they? I mean, you know.
Yeah, it is. I remember one time being in a club in LA, and I said, can I get 2 bottles of water, please? And the woman's looking at me, and I'm like, 2 bottles of water, please. 2 bottles of water, like this. And she's still like, and then I went, can I get some water? She turned around and she went and grabbed the bottles of water, because I had to put D in the T.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
crazy. When I'm in America, I was over in America recently, and I was in the supermarket, and I just happened to say something. Excuse me, I can't find the Lavazza coffee, which is my favorite coffee, Lavazza. If you're listening, you can send me a case anytime. And all of a sudden I had 5 people around me. They were going, I absolutely love your accent. Could you say, do you know the Queen? You know, and all this sort of thing. So it is it's good fun being a Brit, isn't it? And traveling around. Now, I want to do a quick pivot here, because we had a very interesting conversation off camera about your experience with aliens. Can you tell us about that? Because it's really in the news at the moment. UFOs everywhere. Alien stories are really prolific. Tell us yours.
Yeah. So, you know, for those, for the viewers, look up a documentary called Dreamland. It was done in 1996. Okay. I worked on that as a co-assistant editor. And that's the reason why I've been so gung-ho about a lot of this personally. But yes, my experience And the experience that we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is the experience of when I was in Vegas. And well, there's a few of them, but in Vegas specifically. Now, look at me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm 6'3" and I look like this. Okay, remember that. Okay, because that's important. Unfortunately, it is, but it isn't, but it is. In LA, in Los Angeles, in that part of the world, if somebody my height, my size, and walks up to a car, there will be an instant recognition of somebody's walking up to me. Hi, can I help you? Can I help you? You know, if it's because people normally they're looking this way in their cars and see, can I help you? Can I help you? Right. So, or there'd be the sound of the click, right? The central locking, safety. You don't know who I am, right? Fair enough.
Yeah.
Or the window will go up or go down depending on how they're going to interact. Right. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen, because we do that. That's all over the world. It's not just in LA. It's not just in America. Okay. So one day we're leaving a festival. I'm sober. Everything's fine. We're leaving a festival. I'm in the back of my friend's car. I have a passenger. There's a passenger next to me, another friend. My friend is driving. She's driving, and a colleague of mine in the front, friend mate of mine in the front. So because we're in the car park and we're leaving, they've cordoned off the exit road. So there's only basically 2 lanes going that way, nothing going this way. Bollards in the center, so you can't cross over. So everybody's trickling out of this event, you know, trickling like in 1 mile an hour, sometimes 0 miles an hour. You're sitting there. Right. So I've set the scene. I'm sitting like this. My friend is talking to us. So he's in the front seat, turning around and talking to us. Then he stops his gaze. He's talking, but then his gaze trails off and he's now focused beyond us. And I can see it in him. Right. And what's interesting, he has a stigmatism in his eye, but yet he can, but and that proves that it's not just about the lens or that's another story. It is about the vibration and the frequency that you perceive in your eye. Okay, we'll get to that at some point. But he's doing this. I'm like, what are you doing, man? I was like, what's up? And he goes, I think she's who's she? What? I said, I think I'm being tracked by an alien. I'm like, really? And so I said to him, where? Right. And if you notice here that in my voice, it wasn't like, oh, don't be silly. It was like, really, where? And he goes, 3 cars back. So we're not going anywhere. So I immediately open the passenger door and I get out. I put my dark glasses on. Now, this is where it gets interesting, ladies and gentlemen. I immediately started to say and repeat in my mind, in my head, I am just here to acknowledge our 2 existences. I'm here to meet you. I'm grateful to, and that was my energy that I built in my mind, and I was repeating it over and over as I walked slowly towards the car. It was a black ML320, an older version of the Mercedes SUV, right? So I'm walking up to it. Now, here's what's interesting, because I can, again, being the musician and the DJ, so you pick up everything, you hear everything. What was really interesting was the universe started to talk to me immediately, because as I walked, there was this blonde girl standing on the hood of a car facing that way, and I heard her voice say, "There's aliens." And I turned, looked up at her, and I carried on walking, still repeating the same thing and focused on these people. When I got to the front of when I got to what the Americans call the hood of the car, we call it the front, the bonnet, the bonnet, right? When I got to the bonnet, I heard this. All of a sudden, as I'm still repeating this stuff, I hear this in my head, and I carried on walking slowly, and I get there, and I'm still repeating it, but I heard this, and then there was a silencing. And then I'm standing, I'm right next to the car. Like if I do this, I'm touching the paintwork on the door, right? I turn around, I'm looking straight in, and I take my sunglasses and put them up there like this. And I'm looking at these people in there. The window is down, right? I could literally put my hand in and reach in and touch this person. That's exactly how close I was. Nobody moved. No head turned around to look at me and say, hey, can I help you? They weren't Navy SEALs. Right? Nobody turned around. I mean, they stayed focused forward, their heads, their bodies. And then when I suddenly started looking, they were identical. They were identical to the
Well,
point,
they all had the same face.
the same features. I'm talking hair, face, everything, the clothing, they were identical to where, and here's the other thing. I couldn't quite tell what the energy was, whether it was direct male or female, very androgynous. And also my solar plexus, I felt this energy in my solar plexus that I only felt when I got close to them, and it went away when I left. And I've only ever felt it one other time in Los Angeles in a VIP dark part of a club. It was incredible. And I was standing there saying thank you for allowing. Now in my head I'm saying thank you for this meeting. I'm just being, because I say to myself, I don't know where people are from. They could read minds for all I know, but I want to make sure that they can read mine. They hear what's going on. They feel the sentiment. They can read my water. I'm being genuine. And I have to honestly say, when I looked at them, the skin was opaque, but the hair was thick. Eyelashes looked like they were made out of obsidian. And I was looking, and honestly, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell the difference. And then just at the last minute, the one closest to me didn't move their head, nothing moved. Just the eyes went, bah, like the fastest flick that I've ever seen. Like humans we can't do it that quick. It was quick. And I was like this, awesome. In my head, I was like, awesome. Put my sunglasses back on, and I didn't even go back to the car. I carried on walking. Now, this was the weird, trippy bit. After that encounter, I couldn't say anything. Like, I couldn't have a conversation for at least 6 hours. I could come up with one word. And what was really weird was because my buddy Kyle, because he and I, like when we amplify each other's energy, each other's sort of vibration. So all kind of crazy stuff can happen around us, really cool stuff that people go, whoa, right? But even he knew what I was trying to say when my friend Malia, she was saying something to me and I would say one word and then she would say something as if it would counter what it was I was supposed to say. And then a noise would happen in the room or something would stop or some other stuff would take place. And I would just look at her and say, are you going to stop now? This was a real encounter. This is all happening. Just let it happen, right? But it was
interesting. Listen, I'm going to have to stop you there because we're nearly out of time.
Okay.
But I just wanted to talk about that because it's so in the news at the moment, and people think that it's sorry, excuse me, something that's really out there. And I just wanted everyone to know that they could be. They are amongst us, and they don't mean us any harm. They're just observing us. We're still here. I mean, if you can fly a spaceship, I'm sure you could take us out. So very quickly, thank you so much for being with us today, Iheanyi, aka Blackliquid. Where can our viewers find you?
You can if you go to Blackliquid Music on if you go to Blackliquid Music on YouTube, you can see some videos of mine there, some DJ stuff. You can also see my new comic, right, which is there as well. So that's going to be a monthly now because everybody wants my time before I can get to do the weekly. So and then also if you hit me up on Instagram, that's Blackliquid with the number 1 at the end of it. So Blackliquid, all one word with the number 1 at the end, and Twitter, all the others. It's Blackliquid. Facebook /Blackliquid, you name it /Blackliquid. Go to Beatport if you want to hear some music. Go to Beatport again. Type in either Blackliquid Music or type in Blackliquid. I will come up. You see this visage, this lovely visage. You'll see me come up.
That's fantastic.
This is the logo, so you recognize it. All right.
Amazing. Well, you heard it here, everybody. If you need voiceover, if you need a DJ, if you need a composer or a producer, just type in Blackliquid and this charming gentleman will come up. Thank you so much for watching us. Thank you so much for turning up every week and subscribing to my show. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Iheanyi, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Vanessa. It was awesome. Thank you.